College special teams. Many lament it, and it has reared its ugly head for years in the Miami-Florida State rivalry. With several wide rights and a wide left thrown in for good measure, games with national title implications have come down to the kicker in the rivalry between the Hurricanes and the Seminoles. But regardless of the stakes, this gridiron showdown commands national attention. From its heyday in the 1980s until its resurgence recently in the ACC, we'll break down the most important matchups in the history of the annual showdown between the U and the Noles on this episode of Stadium Rivals. FSU was on a 13-game win streak in 1951 before heading from Tallahassee down to Miami for the very first time. The Seminoles were in for a rude awakening as the Tallahassee Democrat termed Miami the Hurryin' Hurricanes due to the team's overall speed. Miami surprised FSU to the tune of a 35-13 triumph. Miami would win 8 of the first 9 matchups in this rivalry from 1951 to 1962. Miami QB George Mira was on the cover of Sports Illustrated's 1963 college football preseason preview, pegged as perhaps the best QB in the sport. But in the first game of the season, FSU would rip that magazine and all press clippings touting the Hurricanes' prowess to shreds. Fred Biletnikoff scored 3 times for the Noles, QB Steve Tenzie added 2 through the air, and Mira was reduced to 18 of 39 passing for just 182 yards. FSU shocked Miami 24-0. The win marked the first of 7 straight in the rivalry for FSU, with all of the wins coming on Miami's home field of the Orange Bowl. Although the teams had met 30 times prior to their 1987 matchup, this one took on national importance as Miami was ranked 3rd in the country and FSU was ranked 4th, marking the first time the two teams would meet with both ranked inside the top 5. FSU jumped out to a 19-3 lead, but in the fourth quarter, Michael Irvin's 73-yard catch and TD scamper was the memorable play in this one, putting the Canes up 26-19 with just more than 2 minutes left. FSU responded with a touchdown with 42 seconds to play, and legendary coach Bobby Bowden decided to go for 2 and the win. The attempt failed, and Miami pulled out a 26-25 victory. The win helped propel Jimmy Johnson's Hurricanes to their 2nd national title in school history. It was 1988, and the football rap craze was continuing to sweep the nation. FSU released the Seminoles rap that year, and it's about as much of a knockoff of the Super Bowl shuffle as it sounds. Ranked at the top of most polls to start the season, Miami hosted the Seminoles and promptly crushed them to the tune of a 31-0 victory. Miami, led by head coach Dennis Erickson, would win the school's 3rd national championship in 1989 after an 11-1 season. That one loss, well, that was to number 9 Florida State. Facing Miami's normally stout defense, FSU had to deal with Canes' backup QB Gino Torretta, who would win the Heisman Trophy 3 years later. Florida State took home a great win, downing the future champs 24-10. The game in 1991 started a crazy run of 5 contests in 12 years that ended in kicking mishaps. In this one, FSU kicker Jerry Thomas had already hit 3 field goals and was lining up for a 34-yarder in the final minutes to give his team the lead. The kick sailed wide right, and number 2 Miami took down number 1 Florida State 17-16. Miami would take down Nebraska in the Orange Bowl to earn the school's 4th national championship. Can you say deja vu? This time, Bobby Bowden's kicker was Dan Mowry, who had a chance to send the game to overtime with a 39-yard field goal on the last play of regulation. However, just like 1991, this one in 92 went wide right yet again, and Miami celebrated, topping Florida State 19-16. FSU responded emphatically in 1993 as Bowden turned to QB Charlie Ward, the future Heisman winner, against Miami. FSU stormed through the regular season, losing only to Notre Dame, and the path to the national championship that year included a 28-10 beatdown of number 3 Miami. By 1996, it had been 12 years since Florida State had won a game in Miami. Luckily for FSU, they had running back Warwick Dunn. Dunn scored the team's 3rd TD of the first quarter on an 80-yard scamper. He finished with 163 yards on the ground as the number 3 Noles cruised to a 34-16 win. They call this one Wide Right 3, and it would go against the Seminoles yet again. 2000 Heisman Trophy winner Chris Weinke moved FSU into field goal range during a last-minute drive in Miami, trailing 27-24. But this time it was kicker Matt Munyon who would send one wide right and end another loss for the Noles. Miami took home its fifth and most recent national title in 2001. And yes, the following year, in 2002, the game came down to another field goal. Xavier Bechea had 1 second left to help Florida State upset number 1 Miami, and this one would end up wide left, with the Canes escaping 28-27. Miami grabbed a win in the regular season matchup in 2003, and the schools would meet in the postseason at the 2004 Orange Bowl. Bechea would have a chance to redeem his 2002 miss with a field goal attempt with about 5 minutes left in the fourth. But this one went wide right, and Miami held on for a 16-14 win. Months later, the following regular season marked the first game that Florida State and Miami matched up as members of the ACC. The 2004 matchup would go to OT. A fumble by FSU QB Chris Ricks gave the ball to the Canes, where on the next play, Frank Gore did this.
Here's Gore, daylight, sprinting, cutting, Miami wins it.
Miami 16, Florida State 10. The 2006 ACC season opener pitted the rivals against each other at the Orange Bowl for the final time. This was a defensive struggle won by Florida State 13-10. FSU would finish with a 15-16 record against Miami in games played at the OB. The game in 2009 was an offensive explosion. Miami came into the game unranked against number 18 Florida State. Led by Ja'Cory Harris at QB, Miami held on for a 38-34 victory. The game combined for 880 yards of total offense. The storyline in 2017 was that of 7 straight losses for Miami against FSU and head coach Jimbo Fisher. With just more than a minute left, Miami QB Malik Rozier drove his team down the field before connecting with Darrell Langham on a 23-yard TD with 6 seconds remaining. After a long review, the call would stand, and Miami took home a 24-20 win. It's always highly rated and usually has plenty of national storylines. That's what makes Miami and Florida State worth watching year in and year out. Now that both are in the ACC, the battles have been even more important for these state of Florida rivals. We'll see if future moments can match the big ones from the past, but Florida State Miami is most deserving of its place on Stadium Rivals.